Today I want to talk about books that are hard to explain because for whatever reason I can't get enough of these types of books. And I'm going to preface this video by, if you have anything that you think fits into any of these sorts of genres or ideas about writing, please recommend them to me because these books are just so interesting. So the first thing is The Place of the Lion, which is the thing I'm currently reading. I don't know what else to say aside from this book is fascinating. It really is. It's about a sorcerer who opens the portal to another dimension or another world, or mythic archetypes. I don't directly know how to explain it, but it's about how everyday people kind of face the trials that are somewhat eternal in humanity. And I'm only about a little less than halfway, and I'm having a whole lot of fun reading this. The reason I picked this up is because I was reading another book on this list, but we'll get to that in a little bit more time, and I'll explain exactly why I picked up this book. But Charles S. Williams, Charles W. S. Williams. I was trying to read it off of the back of the book, but just so far, really enjoying this. There's certainly a deeper layer to this. There's certainly more to read into and read in between the lines with this guy. I know nothing about him, but all I know is he was friends with C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, and yeah, so far I'm just astounded by this book. There's a whole lot to read in it, and it's certainly a book that I'm going to come back to and reread and just continue to enjoy. But I don't want to spoil too much. I don't know too much for myself, but I just know that I'm having a whole lot of fun going through this. Next thing we have is The Red Book by Carl Jung, and this is, boy, is this a trip trying to read. Carl Jung's Red Book is commonly known as his most out there book. It was originally known as the Black Books because it was scribbled into journals and then it was transcribed into the Red Book about 50 years after he died. And there's a very clear reason as why he didn't publish this while he was alive, and there's a very clear reason as why this wasn't published until 50 years after his death, and that reason is it reads like pure madness. And he, in fact, prefaces the entire work by saying, to an outsider, this might seem like a work of pure madness, but to me, it was the source of my genius. And essentially, the backstory of this book is that Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud kind of had a professional split. Freud was building Jung up to be his successor and to carry on his name and carry on his legacy, but Jung said things that were contradictory to Freud's theories, and because of this, Freud kind of ostracized him, and Jung overnight lost all of his professional credibility, everything he had built up to this point, and as a result, he started to kind of, I don't know if you would say go crazy or just have struggles, have some demons, and essentially Jung went into his own imagination through a process called active imagination. Sounds so crazy. Daydreaming and sort of trying to read the symbols and the signs and the characters in his daydream to kind of come to some sort of understanding. And you really see a deeper layer of Jung in this book. You really see his spirituality and his understanding of his own soul. And really what you'll learn from this entire work is that you have to go to the depths of hell to confront yourself, to bring yourself to the light. And what does this mean? This means facing your elements, your darker aspects of yourself that you aren't dealing with. You know, if you're somebody that's very insecure, well, you have to come to grip with those insecurities. If you're somebody that is quick to anger, well, you have to start to be able to control that passion, because anger really isn't anything aside from energy. It's just emotion. You know, think of Italians. If you've ever talked to an Italian person, they are really animated about whatever emotion they have. And, you know, at the best of times, it could be something extremely beautiful, like, spending time with your family and you know, really giving back to your people that really mean the most to you, or it could be just tedious bickering about nonsense. And like, if you know an Italian, if you know a person that is like American Italian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if Italians are different, but New Jersey Italians are very interesting people, and I think they're the perfect embodiment of what I'm trying to speak to. But really what I'm trying to say is that you need to be in control of your emotions. You need to be understanding of where you can go wrong so that you can put that to something better. You know, I can, when somebody cuts me off in the middle of the road, I can get all angry and all emotional, all sorts of stuff like that, but just understand that's energy and time and passion I could put into my relationships. That's energy and time that I could be devoting to something better. Instead, I'm getting all worked up about somebody that maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they thought they could make it, and maybe they didn't think that it was really that annoying. Or even if they intentionally did, what's the point of me getting angry about that? What's the point of me getting upset about something that is outside of my control? As the Stoics say, you can only control your internal world. You can't control the external world. On to the next thing. I really don't want to talk too much about the Red Book, because I think it's just one of those works where you're not going to be able to understand the whole thing, but if you get a little bit of breadcrumbs, if you can pull one loose thread, it's really going to help you a lot. And I don't recommend reading it until you've read a lot of Jung, because you're not going to really... You kind of need to know about the guy before you can read this book, because you have to have a little bit of insight onto his life and the way he thinks about things. The next thing we have is the C.S. Lewis, The Space Trilogy. I said the Space Lewis. Maybe that's a book. Maybe that's written somewhere. But C.S. Lewis's The Space Trilogy. I've only read the first book so far, and I'm really excited to go through and read the rest of them. But the first book is not at all what you expect out of a sci-fi book. It's essentially a story about a philologist who is... I used to think it was, when I first read it, I thought it was C.S. Lewis inserting himself. He's actually inserting Tolkien, and I'm pretty sure I would have known that if I continued to read, because it becomes really clear, really, that it's an insert for J.R.R. Tolkien in the third book. But yeah, I'm really excited to go back through this. And as you're reading this, you're getting a story not so much about aliens and fighting and all sorts of stuff like this. It's more so about the language involved with aliens, the different ways of life, how life can develop differently, how things can progress differently, how different species can get along. And it's almost alien to us as individuals and as humans, that how these different societies can interweave together, and how nobody really wants more than they necessarily need, and just there's all these interesting things. And then you have the other human beings who interact in a very predictable way with the aliens, and it kind of shows you different themes that you wouldn't necessarily expect in sci-fi. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in things that you're just not expecting. I'm interested in different experiences of life. If you couldn't tell by this list, the kinds of books that really get me the most excited are the kind of books that can tie together and say something in an honest way, and in a different way than what we normally see. You know, I'm tired of seeing the same movie where I can predict the plot points. I'm tired of watching TV shows where I know they're just going to do a certain thing because it's just drama and it's an easy storyline to tell. No, I want a deeper experience. And I think you really get this out of C.S. Lewis's The Space Trilogy, at least specifically out of The Silent Planet. I have a broad idea of what happens in the next two books, but I'm really urging you to pick up this book, because I know C.S. Lewis is most well known for either his apologetics, which are extremely interesting in their own right, but also the Chronicles of Narnia, and, you know, also known through his friendship with J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings. But I feel like the Space Trilogy is not really talked about in its right kind of category, and it was written in 1943. It's some of the most interesting, fascinating stuff, and you know, there's really a heart and a soul to this book that I think is so important to understand. And with that said, we will get into the next thing, which is Ulysses. I really don't have much to say that's super interesting about this book. There's people that devote their lives to studying this book, and if you're at all interested in that, then go ahead and find those people, because whatever I have to say is not that fascinating. But I can't make a list talking about books that defy genres and defy experiences and are so unique and are so difficult to explain without putting Ulysses on this work, or on this video. Why can't I speak now? But you know, it just had to be there, and that's why I included it. But Ulysses is a marvel of linguistics. It truly is very impressive. But I'm going to give you the Borges take here, which is Ulysses is a work to admire but not to read. And simply what that means is it's a masterpiece. It really is, but it's so complex, it's so difficult that, like, I could read Dante 100 times before I understood what Joyce was trying to get through Ulysses. And really what you can get in Ulysses is everything. Everything you're looking for, every reference you could hope to find, every philosophy, every idea. It's all there, but it's just put in different allegories, metaphors, linguistic practices, rhyming. You have to sing a lot of sections of this. It's really is the more you talk about it, the more interesting it seems. But when you actually go to read it, you're like, I have no idea what I'm understanding. But if you can put in the time, if you could put in the effort, if you could have a companion book with you, if you could read it with other people, if you could sing out loud the necessary sections, then you could really begin to understand this book and you could really gain a lot from it. Personally, to me, that's not the kind of stuff I enjoy the most. What I really enjoy the most are the things that the dumbest person and the smartest person could gain something from. I like universal truths. I like universal sort of ideas that the more well versed you are in them, the deeper you can get a perception of them, and the deeper experience you could get from them. It's like a really good example of this is the Bible. Like the Bible has eternal lessons that just the homeless guy on the street yells to you and he proclaims that he's Jesus, and he understands it in a certain way, but the most articulate, the most astounding, and the most intelligent people, such as C.S. Lewis or Tolkien, they have such a deep and profound understanding of what these teachings are and why they're so essential to humanity and why they're so essential to life, that it's just, there's something so beautiful to that about me. I don't know how to explain it, but that's the kind of stuff I enjoy reading, and that's why I don't necessarily enjoy Ulysses as much as somebody else would. But again, I see why it is, and I had to include it on this list just for that reason. But on to the next thing, Meetings with Remarkable Men by Gurdjieff. And I don't even know how to explain this book. I really don't, because the only thing quite like this that I've read is Autobiography of a Yogi. And it kind of goes through the yogi's experience with finding different masters and finding different things and finding exactly what he wanted out of life. And essentially, this is a similar thing, but with Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff, you don't know what to believe, because there's a lot of things where he's not really telling you the full truth. He's kind of hiding things. He's being mysterious. He's not revealing everything, and he meets all these different kind of characters. He meets princes, he meets mystics, he meets hooligans. He has a friend that got bitten by a wild camel. I didn't even know camels could be wild. I didn't know they could bite people. I didn't know they could kill people. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many weird things about this book, and there's so many interesting things about this book. And perhaps the most interesting section to me, and the place that I remember the most and the most astounded I was by the beginning sections where Gurdjieff's talking about his father and how his father was basically a bard, and he had this oral tradition of all these songs of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And at the time, he was talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh. Well, how do I say this? He knew the Epic of Gilgamesh before it was rediscovered by historians. And that's one of the most interesting things to me. And it was so well preserved that it was basically word for word and kept all of the intentional philosophy. And it's just, that was so interesting to me. And that was so interesting to see that there's a whole kind of lost art of the oral tradition and the philosophical ideas that were passed down through all these stories and all these allegories and all of these epic poems. And there was something so fascinating about this book. And then there was other parts where he talked about how he had a prince that he was friends with that basically spent all of his fortune trying to find some sort of enlightenment. He talks about all different characters, and overall you kind of just get an insight into why Gurdjieff was the kind of person he was. But you don't even have to be interested in Gurdjieff to be interested in this book, because there's just so many weird stories, there's so many out there things, and there's just it's just a really cool book. That's all I really got to say to you guys. But yeah, here is the list of books. I will put them all up at once. Yeah, hopefully we will do other lists like this. Please let me know books that you feel a similar way about, because I'm always interested in those books that kind of defy genres, that kind of do things differently, that kind of are difficult to explain, because I think there's a depth to them, and I think they are able to capture the essence of life at a truer point. Because it's like think of like a classic Joseph Campbell kind of tale where the hero goes out, he is challenged, he fails, he comes back better, and he triumphs. But like, is that really true to life, or is life kind of one never-ending battle and one never-ending kind of attempt to get some sort of victory over the forces of nature and trying and failing in vain? But yeah, with that said, here are some interesting books. I really, really want to see what you guys suggest, but if not, just enjoy the list I made for you guys. I will catch you in the next one. Peace out. And yeah, thank you guys for all the support. It's been tremendous lately, and yeah, have a good rest of your day.